I'm Amy Baxter, editor of Retail Leader, and welcome to Trend Talk. Every week on Trend Talk, we're going to identify a trend across the retail industry with a keen eye toward grocery, convenience, and drug, and give it a deep dive with an industry insider. This week, we have Mike Troy, editorial director of Progressive Grocer. I'm very excited to have Mike here with me, and today we're going to dive into the evolving role of grocery when it comes to healthcare. So Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
So I'd like to start with a broad view of this trend. We're seeing grocery stores expand their typical capabilities to becoming community hubs for health. There's a big reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic as well. And there's this trend of adding more healthcare capabilities isn't just with grocery, right? We're seeing it with Amazon acquired the online pharmacy PillPack for about $1 billion in the last couple of years. CVS stores has been expanding their new health hub concept. And of course, Walmart has been adding health clinics to its stores. And so my background is in healthcare reporting, so I really see the connection between healthcare and grocery happening in part because access to healthy food is such an important social determinant of health. So can you give us a scope of what's fueling this expansion when it comes to grocers?
Well, those are all good examples you gave, and you stole my thunder because I would have given those same examples. So congratulations. Those are good. Those are good. But I think you're on the right track. I think it's good to look at retail broadly, as far as people thinking that there's a role for them to play in healthcare. Obviously, food as medicine is a hot trend. You see specialty grocers doing pretty well. I mean, all grocers did well during the pandemic because everybody was out buying food or having food delivered. So I think if you kind of look past this last year a little bit, anyway, some of those trends were probably accelerated because people were trying to eat even healthier, thinking there's like an immune boosting element to eating better and that type of thing. But just generally speaking, I think you see a lot of retailers wanting to play a more active role in health, whether that's food or trying to get into some ancillary services, those type of things.
Yeah. What are some of the benefits to adding to your healthcare capabilities as a grocery store? And on the flip side, what are some of the major pitfalls or disadvantages of?
Well, the obvious advantage, it just enables you to play a bigger role in your shopper's life.
Mhm.
You're not just selling them food. You're a more indispensable part of their life overall. As far as the pitfall, I think that the tricky part there would be it depends on how deep you want to get into it. So if you want to play a role in pharmacy, obviously that's a very complex business. And then if you want to take a step beyond that and like start administering services, vaccines, I mean, that's pharmacists have been doing that for a little while, but it's getting more elaborate. And now you see some of these, clinics that are opening up that you mentioned Walmart, there's some pretty expansive services that they offer in those handful of clinics they have. But I think they look at that and say that's healthcare is a space we want to be more active in for a wide variety of reasons we can touch on if you like.
Yeah, so I understand why healthcare providers would want to go into grocery stores or supermarkets where people are out in their communities because they want to touch people where they are in their community. So for grocer, is it the same benefit, I guess? Is it the same mentality?
Well, pure play healthcare providers opening clinics is different than a retailer opening a
Hmm.
clinic because they're not really equipped, most of them, to like operate that themselves. So maybe it's adjacent or maybe it's integrated. If the store is large enough, there's a way to integrate it with maybe a third party. But most retailers aren't really set up to, run and operate that service by themselves.
Right. Okay. So we talked a little bit about vaccines so far. You mentioned vaccines already. So the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, this is when grocery stores have really emerged as a key player, not just as an essential service, but now as a healthcare player. So you and I both live in Florida, and Publix here is our big grocery store. And they've become very important in the vaccination efforts in Florida and also throughout its pharmacy locations in Georgia, South Carolina, and Virginia. And just last month, Publix announced they have doled out 1 million vaccine doses so far. So, can you talk a little bit about the role of the grocery store in a national or global health emergency or a response like COVID?
I think we're seeing that a lot with companies putting out announcements that they've hit this milestone or that milestone with the number of vaccines they've administered. It's been amazing to see retailers step up on this process of, we're all in this together type of thing. Let's get this vaccine in as many arms as possible. So that's awesome, and I think it's a major technological accomplishment to be able to stand up that infrastructure to have a website that can get slammed with traffic all at once. Everybody trying to get that slot, you know. So it's really, really impressive that not everybody got in, and so there's some squeaky wheels that have voiced frustration with the process. But by and large, it's I think it's pretty remarkable that it's worked as well as it has.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge technology aspect to it. Just having
Yeah,
to,
and then even this vaccine it's not like you're getting the flu shot. It's a different type of vaccine. You got multiple vaccines, that have to be given twice. That's the other piece that gets lost a little bit in this vaccine issue, because compliance with any type of medicine regimen is always tricky. You can go to a doctor and they prescribe your antibiotics and you take 2 pills and you feel better, so you don't take the rest.
Mhm.
So you think you're better, but you're not, because you didn't really fully treat. So, you got to go back and get that second shot. And so the pharmacies have to make sure that, they're managing that and people are prompted and all those kind of things. So that's another tricky thing. And then the storage of it, because it's got to be refrigerated and frozen. So it's pretty interesting, what they've been able to do. And now if you think about, well, they managed to do that, what might they be able to do in the future with
Right.
other type of, even more elaborate type of stuff?
Yeah. Are there any grocers who are saying, you know what, we're just a grocery store and we're sticking to it? Are they missing out on an opportunity to branch out into more healthcare capabilities, or is there a good reason just to stick with what you know?
Well, sticking with what if you do it really well and you can keep it simple, there are some of the most successful food retailers are, you know, limited assortment, private label centric, basic operations. You keep your expenses low, you pass you work off of a thinner margin, and the shoppers save money. As soon as you start adding in, something like pharmacy or more elaborate healthcare type
Mhm.
activities, you have different salary structures and regulatory reporting, and there's a lot of complexity with that. So if you're going to be in that business, you really got to be in that business, meaning CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, you know, I think even a company like Rite Aid, which is, the third tier in the pharmacy space, is probably challenged a little bit compared to its larger rivals.
Mhm.
And then I guess the other example, on that point, if you think about it, a few years ago, Target sold its pharmacies to CVS, figured, it'd be better to just, let somebody else run that piece for them. They still have the pharmacy in the store, so they benefit from that, universe of capabilities they offer shoppers. But now they've got the real pros running it because it's such a complicated business.
Right. So my last question, what are your expectations for the future? Do you have any predictions on where this long haul trend toward more healthcare in grocery is going?
Um, Predictions. Okay. I think we're going to see, generally speaking, a trend toward greater price transparency of services. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, because I'd like to know what something costs before I have something done to me, which is kind of the opposite of how it works in most of retail. You
Mhm.
know what a 16-ounce box of pasta costs when you go to the supermarket, and it's likely to be about the same price if you go to another supermarket. But you and I could go to the same clinic to have an MRI done, and neither of us know what it's going to cost, and the price you pay might be twice what I pay. So I think there are some interesting things with major companies, retailers, and I'll just name Walmart as one that's, they're all about price transparency and access. So I think
And low
that's going to be
price.
a big thing. And I think there'll be more of this. If I'm your doctor and you've got a simple thing, like, why can't we just talk like this? I know there's probably some HIPAA regulations or whatever, but it doesn't make sense. You have to take a half a day off of work, drive somewhere, sit in an office, wait for an hour to have somebody tell you your lab results look pretty good and, come back in 6 months.
Yeah.
So transparency and access will be big drivers, I think, in the future.
Yeah. And on the healthcare side, that will obviously help a lot of the pain points from patients.
Healthcare pain
Yeah,
points. There you go. Nice pun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, so much for the overview of the trend and for sharing your insights. The grocery sector is certainly seeing a whole lot of changes right now, and your perspective on this healthcare angle has been just wonderful.
All right.
So that does it for us today on Trend Talk, and we'll see you back here next week with a new retail trend.
Cool. Thanks.